my left shoulder, I could not lift above that angle. Now, you know, I'm like, that hurts, yeah, and that will always hurt for the rest of my life. But I could never do that. I could only do this, supported lifting. So I because I could put no force or weight through my shoulder, because it would just collapse, because it was too weak, it was too inflamed. If I did more than a little bit of physio the next day, it was in absolute agony because the inflammation had got even worse. So when I started removing that with carnivore diet.
Jerry, how did you find carnivore?
Well, I think like lots of your viewers, I had problems, and I wasn't particularly well. I had IBS for about 25 years. And as anyone who's been given that diagnosis rapidly realizes, they give you the term because they don't really know what it is. They don't know how to cure it, and they don't certainly know really what's causing it. Well, they know what's causing it, but they don't know what's causing to cause it, if that makes sense. And you know, doctors had endoscopies and colonoscopies that had proved I didn't have, well, I had some pretty unpleasant symptoms that actually I found was part of my process is sharing that. So I hope you don't mind. The squeamish probably want to turn down, but you know, I had the normal stomach problems, very uncomfortable, and then going to the toilet was just horrendous. You know, and the worst, it would have severe rectal bleeding and things that you go, well, you know, I better work out I haven't got cancer. And that's what they were able to tell me, but little else. So it was very unsatisfying. I got back from a friend's father's funeral and was just ill for a week, and I'd literally had enough. And I was watching YouTube and came across Jordan Peterson, who mentioned about his diet, his ridiculous diet, and the fact he'd inherited that from his daughter Michaela. I went to find out more about her, because certainly the digestive issues she had sounded as though there was some similarity between some of the challenges I'd had. And it's worth saying I always had a lot of inflammation. I was 20 and a half stone, so 130 kilos. I'm 6'2", so you know, oh, you're just a big guy, Jerry. But you know, I had enormous amounts of visceral fat built up over the years of, you know, having a career sitting at a desk and not doing enough exercise and eating poorly, or eating, I thought, quite well, but you know, a normal balanced diet. From watching YouTube and going further into that, it became very obvious that I had to lose this weight, and actually maybe there were things that could help physically with. I got an arthritic left shoulder, my right ankle. I was at a stage where it was like, well, you're probably going to have it operated on, because I was icing it every day. My, you know, probably just due to the weight, my knees were increasingly deteriorating. I couldn't do exercise. So it was a vicious circle. And once I started realizing that, and again, it was through YouTube, and I thanked you at the beginning, and you know, that was sincere, because without people like you bringing evidence-based examples to normal people who don't understand medicine, and I never will, and to be honest with you, I don't know how much deeper I want to, because what I'd understood from an early age from my mother, who was a homeopath, was that we were only ever treating symptoms in medicine. We normally weren't giving a cure. And we were only ever treating, oh, you've got this problem with your liver. We were not treating the whole individual. And I didn't quite understand what that meant at the time, but it clearly left a mark on me, because when I started doing the research, and you see, well, you know, there was this doctor who won the Nobel Prize for saying cancer is a metabolic disease. And you go, oh, that's fantastic. They found that out once I understood what that meant. So clearly these metabolic doctors will be able to help us. And obviously I look for metabolic doctors, and there's nothing really there, other than individuals who are breaking rank and sort of going, well, sorry guys, but there's stuff that's working that just isn't on our research, isn't on our list of things that we can help you with. So doing the research on YouTube, in all honesty, it probably started off as, well, if I start losing weight, that that's going to help everything. And look, I Googled the sweet and cake diet and nothing came up, sadly, because I absolutely adore sweet stuff. And this is back in August last year, I should say. And then the carnivore diet, I adore meat. You know, if I could replace anything on my plate with meat, I would. So I was like, well, this sounds awesome. And they say I can eat pretty much as much as I like. And I also realized that, you know, diets don't work. I wouldn't have the willpower to do it for the rest of my life. I wouldn't want to do it for the rest of my life. So actually, I'm 57 now, and if I was going to approach whatever the years I have with a degree of energy and vitality and actually living things and being with my family, then I needed to fundamentally do something about it. So that really kicked me off on carnivore, because it was like, this is great. But the lifestyle thing also really made sense to me. So, you know, when you look back on what we have as humans have been like, this concept of, well, you don't need breakfast, guys, because you got to get up, hunt, find your breakfast, kill it, and then eat it. And that could take you half a day. That made a lot of sense to me. You know, I did the research and found out that Kellogg's had invented breakfast being the most important day back in the 50s. Career-wise, I'm a former, well, I still do a bit, but I invest in, and I'm a headhunter. So I'd work with a lot of top-level C-suite boards where a lot of these problems have come from, and they were all decent people with decent values, usually trapped in a system where the incentives are out of control and need fundamentally adjusting, because everything is about unit economics. And in food and pharma, when you get into the unit economics race, it's a race to the bottom. You take out the quality, and you know, you end up with what we've got now, which is the majority of supermarket food, in my view, that is, you know, harming you, and we need to know about. So there were quite a few things going on, and I started carnivore, and you know, the weight just, and I also did the intermittent fasting piece. That I think was very important for the weight loss. Just restricting my time window and going, right, I'm only eating between 11 and 7. And you know, initially for the first 2 weeks, I was having, you know, piles of meat, because I was used to massively overeating, as pretty much our entire lives have been driven by in the last sort of 50-60 years, where we've had so much surplus. And I found after 2 weeks that things had really started to change. You know, I was losing an enormous amount of weight, almost to the stage where I was like, well, maybe I should go to a doctor, because, you know, it's falling off. And I'd say probably I did it pretty strict for 3 months. And my inflammation, I wouldn't say it changed overnight, but jeepers creepers, you know, this foot I was going to have to operate it on, my shoulder that was, you know, my left shoulder, I could not lift above that angle. Now, you know, I'm like, that hurts, yeah, and that will always hurt for the rest of my life. But I could never do that. I could only do this, supported lifting. So I because I could put no force or weight through my shoulder, because it would just collapse, because it was too weak, it was too inflamed. If I did more than a little bit of physio the next day, it was in absolute agony, because the inflammation had got even worse. So when I started removing that with carnivore diet, it made a huge difference. And you know, as you get more mobile, so you also start to benefit from what I found, you know, the lifestyle piece of I get up at 5, which is why I was delighted to see we could do something at 7. I you know, once I started to lose the weight, I'd walk my dog for 2 hours on wet, sodden, horrible up and down fields, so really strenuous, at the best time of day, getting the morning light. And sure enough, come, you know, dark time, I was waiting for it to get dark so I could go to bed, because I was tired by then. But I had, you know, having never been a morning person, I had energy, I had drive, I had enthusiasm for things, and I guess as the journey has progressed, I've realized that I was probably depressed. I don't come from a age or environment where that's something I would ever think about, really. I just go, I'm a bit sad, or you'd reflect and go, I've got this awesome life, I've got an awesome family, I don't necessarily have to do things like work, and I mean, God, how could life get any better? Well, it didn't feel like that. And I used to feel really bad about the fact that I didn't feel good, because I'm like, well, Jerry, you've got everything, you must be a selfish, narcissistic, swear word, to feel like this. And that wasn't nice, and that would make you feel worse about yourself. And I didn't realize that until a lot of that shifted, and I found that a lot of the things that would annoy and frustrate me, I had a very different perspective on, because I was able to see that maybe they were just my feelings and they weren't correct, and then move on and they'd progress. And for whatever reason, I'd never had that clarity or focus when I was filling my body with typically sugar-based carbs. So that's how I found it, and that's how I sort of started the journey.
So that's in the first 3 months. You've had some awesome results. So just to clarify one point, in those 3 months, around about how much weight had you lost?
Right, in those first 3 months, I did make some notes on this, because it all gets a little bit, you forget. First 3 months, I went down from 20.5 stone to around 16 and a half. So huge loss.
That's 4 stone. So that's about 4 stone is more than 50 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, that's when I got probably the biggest changes, and then I, just to continue the weight loss piece, and sort of size change, because it still staggers me, because you don't realize, you're just getting older. Everyone gets fatter when they get older, Jerry. Don't worry. I'm now leaner, with more lean muscle than when I was 17 and playing high class rugby. So it is possible, and it's just because we've been told it isn't, and we've lost connection with the fact that we are our own best life support systems, and our body can heal us. Sorry, I digress. Can you just remind me of the question you asked there quickly?
Oh, so it was just about the weight loss in that first 3 months.
So then 3 months, massive weight loss. Then I wanted to try, and mainly because of peer pressure, to be honest with you, and because some things just didn't fit right with me. I wanted to get vegetables back in. I wanted to get maybe some fruits back in and things like that. So I started adding them back in, probably in not as organized a manner as I should. I found fermented veg were pretty good, so I was like, oh great, I'll get into that. I was bone brothing every day, so that was something I really liked, and felt good, and made me feel healthier. But I, inevitably slipped, as you live in a family environment, and brought these things back in. And probably about two weeks ago, maybe 3, I had another severe episode of the IBS, which I hadn't had for quite a period. And I was like, no, I've got carried away with the glamour of being my 17-year-old self, and everyone go, you look so great, and I'm feeling so fit and all that, I'm better. And I'm like, no, Joe, you haven't solved this. So I've gone back to being hard carnivore. And the interesting thing was, when I cut out the little bit of carbs and oxalate-based foods that I had in my diet before, that had crept in, I've gone from, I've now got down to just not trying to lose weight, but you inevitably do when you eat like that. I mean, I got down to probably about 101 kilos. And then, which was, I'd stayed that pretty flat on that from the first 3 months loss. And then, in the last sort of 2 weeks, I've lost, another 5 kilos, and I'm eating like, I had 2 steaks yesterday. I had a great big piece of salmon. I had 4 eggs. I had 2 chops. I piled it on, but I'm finding it's I mean, I know exactly how I can put on weight. I just go and have any sort of carbs, but it's a pretty hard diet, I'm finding, to actually put on weight. And my waist and the visceral fat piece, you know, that went from 44 inches down to 36, and I'm finding it's getting even smaller, so a huge loss. My neck size went down from like, sadly, all the 18-inch shirts I've got now, I just look like a clown in them, as I do in my suits. So I've had to get new ones of those. And my neck's down to about 16 and a half.
So just on your suits, I mean, it probably looks like you're a young boy wearing your dad's suits or something now.
I you know, all I need is the red shiny nose and the big shoes, and I would be a clown. We went to a black. You know, I don't have to wear suits every day, so I don't. It's not a big issue for me anymore. But we did go to a black tie event, and I was like, okay, I'm not going. And my wife was like, well, why not? I said, because if I have to wear black tie, I will look like a clown. So I had the magnificent experience for the first time in my entire life of going to buy a suit and actually being the, oh, so I think you do the slim fit shirt. And I was like, no, you know, and it never, ever, ever happened to me in my life. I never thought that would have any impact on me or bother me at all. I came out feeling, sadly, it's a very shallow thing, but I came out feeling 10 foot tall because I was like, wow, you know, for the first time in my life, I reversed this. You know, I'd always been a big guy, sporty. So I didn't feel like fat or like it was an issue for me. I was just Big Jerry, you know. Oh, Big Jerry's in the room, and you know, you sort of live up to that, becomes your identity. So for it to change was, you know, you suddenly realize how much these things have been, no pun intended, weighing on you.
Yeah, it's so nice to put clothes on and just feel comfortable in them, right?
Mm.
Not be like, oh, I've got to hold my stomach in, or I've got to do this, or I've got to breathe in, or whatever it is, you know?
And I used to do a lot of socializing with people in the evenings, and you know, going to do's and you know, talking to people and being interested over a glass of something. And it's humiliating because I was just constantly sweating, you know, because you're so overweight, you've got such bad, really, you know, circulation of air through your skin because you've got these, you know, rubbish floating around in you. And yeah, it's a nasty, vicious circle. So I'd feel more under pressure. I'd feel really stressed, so that would make me sweat more, and I'd be hot and uncomfortable. You know, it was. And now going to something like that, when I talk to someone, and again, it's the difference in how you enjoy these things. A market, and people have said to me, "Wow, you seem really happy," and I was like, "Oh, was I really unhappy before?" They go, "No, I'm not unhappy, but like, if I want the positive on things, Jerry, I'm going to come and talk to you." I was like, "Okay, well, that's nice."
That's awesome. So, you talked about how you're keeping a window of like 11 till 7 for your eating. So during that period of time, are you just eating when you're hungry, or do you have some kind of relatively set times that you?
No, I mean, I oscillated during my 3 months. You know, I did do things like 3-day fasts, and I found them awesome. This whole concept of cleaning out, you know, autophagy, I massively got into that. So I then sort of, oh, am I going to do OMAD? And I'm not very good with rules or regulations, and I don't follow them. And I'm always like, yeah, but I don't think what you've done there necessarily applies to me because of this situation, which isn't necessarily the greatest attribute to have. But it always makes me question things, and I questioned why I'd want to give it a tag. And now when I'm hungry, I eat. You know, what did I do yesterday? I was hungry because I got up early and done lots of stuff. And also I throughout this, I was smoking, which isn't a great biomarker for anything. And what I found in the last month is I've been able to stop smoking cigarettes totally. Again, because I had the fortitude from somewhere. I had the resilience in my brain, my body. I don't know what combination it was, but you know, that's now been possible, and obviously smoking is an appetite suppressant. So I've been feeling hungry. But as I've said, yesterday I think at 10, and then my wife came back and I was cooking more chops at like 2 because I was like, I just wanted to snack. And she said, "Oh, well, you're not going to eat tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll eat, and I'll probably be hungry in a couple of hours again." And sure enough, I had a great big thing of salmon at 6. And no bloating, no negative reactions. You feel satiated, but you don't. I hadn't realized for all the years I'd walked around feeling like a balloon, and how uncomfortable that is, and how that's inevitably going to make you sick.
You mentioned your wife there. So how does wife and family feel about this? Are they on board? Are they doing it? Are they just like, well, you do your thing, Jerry, we'll do ours? How?
I mean, my wife's into it a little bit because obviously, she saw the weight come off and was like, "Well, that's ridiculous." So a little bit of the fasting, but no, we still have bad foods in the house: sugar, based crisps and chocolate and cake, and I've got 3 kids. Most of them, they're mostly away from home now, but they'll come back, university holidays and other things like that. And I've got a dog, so the dog and the children adore it because I've got 2 boys and a girl who's over in India at the moment. But the 2 boys, strong, sporty. What you mean? It's Dad's cooking meat, right? Great. Well, we'll have some of that, and obviously the dog loves the bones. So, I have a lot of support and love. And my son, who is doing lots of working out in the gym, he was doing quite a bit of protein powder and stuff like that, which I wasn't massively keen on. And obviously giving him real protein was a way better solution, and both of them really enjoy it when I get into my cooking, and they've even got into the fermented vegetables, so they've also learned something from it, which as a parent you always want to do. And you want them to understand that whatever it is they want to achieve in life, probably the main thing that's getting in their way is themselves, and that's what they need to question, and that's what they need to change. And if you can do that as a parent, it's like, well, almost I've done my bit because I've shown them that it's possible. But no, and the whole family relation thing is interesting because my friends and family, this whole concept of so you're not eating any vegetables, you're not eating any fruit, and it has an impact. And that's probably why I went off it first time. This time round, I will go off it more controlled, and not go off it, but add things in a more controlled manner. And if I'm honest with you, probably the main reason that I do that is because even though you question everything, some things you can't shake from your mind, and the peer pressure is significant. That okay, you seem to think that this isn't going to give you coronary disease, that this isn't going to end up giving you scurvy and all the other things they tell you that's going to happen based on YouTube, Jerry. And you're like going, well, yeah. And I the last 5 years of my life and prior to that has taught me that there is a big difference between reality and ideology, and a lot of what we're being told is based on ideology in a lot of areas, not just healthcare, but other areas that I won't go into on this podcast. So for me, I can believe there's a bit of a red pill sort of moment. I've swallowed that, and unless my health deteriorates, then I'm going to trust the person that has served me best to date throughout my life when they've got it right, and that's me. And I would urge anyone else who's got healthcare problems to get informed. Being informed isn't about understanding what government or pharmaceutical companies or food companies say. It's about understanding what other people have been through, and that's why I think that channels like yours, Dave, you know, where, yeah, okay, you're not a medically trained doctor who can pull in slides and tell me about good cholesterol and bad cholesterol and what the mitochondria does and all these things that confuse the hell out of me, but sort of make sense. Well, that's what we need, because that's where most people are at. Because, you know, I like doctors a lot, but they're captive and beholden to this. And a few break free. I shared what's his name, Dave Unwin, isn't it? I mean, I mean, you know, what evidence-based doctoring. I mean, you're just like, well, why wasn't that an idea 50 years ago? So it makes a lot of sense to me, and I don't think that I will go away from being heavily meat and animal product and high quality meat and animal product based. But I would like to, you know, bring in fermented vegetables, maybe some of the fruits, because I still love sweet stuff. And every day is a battle not to have sweet stuff.
Yeah. So, I think you make a good, you raise a good point there, you know, like about people perhaps questioning what you trust YouTube more than, you know, all the science that's out there. But yeah, I think I could easily be swayed out of an opinion if, you know, if I sat back and thought about it and thought, yeah, it is just YouTube telling me this. Maybe I shouldn't just be trusting YouTube. There's years and years of evidence, one way or the other, whether it's epidemiological or not, that says this is the way you should be doing things. But then I just go back to, as you say, trust yourself. I just go back to the way I feel.
Totally, man.
And it's like, you know, almost like flipping a switch.
Oh,
And, you know, it's day one,
totally.
you're on carbs, day two, you're not. And it's
Yeah.
just like everything's changed.
And, you know, not just my physical size, but, and I said energy, but, you know, as I said, now I walk between 7 and 11 kilometers every morning with my dog. I'll do 15,000 steps a day. I'm doing those 7 or 11 kilometers with a 10 kg weight vest on. I'll go to the I don't go to the gym every day because I'm like, you know, I should ration it, but I want to. And I go to the gym and just do movement exercises that have meant that I'm able to now physically, you know, I went skiing with my kids and my whole family in December. You know, one's a ski instructor, one's as good as the other one skiing. So these you know, these kids can ski. And I've skied since I was a little boy, so I can ski with them, which is a wonderful gift as a parent. But, you know, I'll be stopping every 100 meters going, oh, that's a beautiful view, isn't it, guys? Because I was knackered. And you know, this was the first time they were like going, Dad, don't you want to stop and look at the view? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. So yeah, you know, and that was a gradual deterioration over 25 years, to the extent where I hadn't realized how bad it had got until, again, I went skiing and went, oh my God, you know, why has this sport become so less physically demanding? You know, because your body's able to deal with it and cope with it in a way that you thought was gone. And that's the bit that really inspires me and keeps me going, is that at the age of 57, when everyone told me that, oh, you're too young to have a shoulder operation, so yeah, just manage the decline until you're probably in your 60s, and then we might be able to do something that gives you, you know, comfort for the rest of your life. You're like, oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. That sounds a bit kind of it's almost morbid, right? When you find out that, you know, the best you're going to get is a bit of relief for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And you know, I've given myself more of that relief now, and I'm building. I still can't do a chin up because my shoulder's too weak. I can do a press up, you know, and I used to do hundreds and hundreds of press ups when I was 16, 17, because you didn't really get into gyms then. It was all, you know, that sort of exercise. And I can do one again now, having not been able to do it, because literally my shoulder would just ratchet and I could put no pressure through it. And, you know, that's all thanks to Carnivore removing the inflammation, giving me more energy and drive. And that helps with everything, because the minute you come across an obstacle, instead of it being something that's going to defeat you, it's like, oh, this is just a new challenge, and I'm loving challenges. So yeah, it's changed everything, really, for me, in a way I wouldn't have thought possible. And I think it's also because of the lifestyle bit that it brings to you as well. And you know, going back to things like you were talking about, well, when do you eat? It's like, well, why does that matter? That only matters because of the way we've been industrialized as humans to go to work. And you know, if you work from home, or you know, if you remove that stress, then uh you've got a real opportunity. And took me a while to grasp it, but you know, I look at it now and think, thank God I did.
So have you had anyone outside family actually express interest and say, well, tell me about this?
Yeah. Well, I sort of ebb and flow on my work and how much I actually do. And so I will go and meet people in you know, concentrated slots, and a lot of the people I meet have known me for quite a long time, professionally, this is. And yeah, I mean, you go to meet them to talk about something, and you spend an hour talking about your health journey, because they all are like, oh my God, you know, they'll walk past you, Jerry, mate, are you all right? And you're like, yeah, I'm okay. You look so well. You know, it's like, I didn't really look ill before. Well, not ill, mate, but oh my God, you're different. So, you know, that's enormously encouraging, and they all want to know about it. And again, I think all want to know about it from like, well, when you tell them, they're like, he's obviously a bit of a nutter. But one of my closest friends, a guy called Ben, who, like me, has plenty of visceral fat on him. You know, we were both, it was Big Ben, he's a bit shorter than me, and Big Jerry, and you know, we've been mates, and he's my, you know, my firstborn child's godfather. So he's one of my closest friends, and a marvelous human being. And he's got into it about 2 weeks ago. So I don't think he started hitting the weight loss yet, but I think after doing it for 3 or 4 days, he had some friends over. You know, they stayed up inevitably till 3 o'clock in the morning, drank too much. And he said for the first time, he woke up, the sun was shining, and he went, I'm going to take dogs for a walk. He said, I don't know where it came from. He said, but normally I would have just been sitting there going, oh, I feel awful. So, you know, I'm so hopeful that he'll have a similar experience and journey, but he's only just starting, so we'll see. Because I think initially when you start cutting the carbs out, you know, everything's really tricky, and you know, he's learning things like, you know, the milk he's got is probably worth 5 or 6 teaspoons of sugar, and stuff like that. So I think he's probably struggling with some of those things, but it's all about, you know, batting away the old understood norms and starting to look at things through a different lens. And for me, the lens is sugar, and I'm now also, as I mentioned, starting to get into oxalates. And if I did carnivore longer, I'd do more oxalate dumping, and I believe that would be a really good thing. And I'm also starting to see that maybe some of the aches and pains that I'm having second time round are to do with oxalates coming out, because it changes, not quite daily, but every other day. I sort of almost have to reassess. And that's why it's so interesting doing things like that, because you stop assessing and you stop understanding and you stop applying, you know, well, what's happening to me? How do I understand the data and the data points, and what are the crucial things? Because, you know, I found you get carried away in the glamour of being young and fit again, and all these things. So yeah, I've had to refocus and understand what my purpose in doing this is, and not get carried away with the interesting stuff. But it, you know, it cuts out so much that does you a huge favor in understanding really what is my body, what have I been doing to it. Because, and this is the other reason I just can't listen to the science anymore, because the science never says, Jerry, what is your body and what have you been doing to it, and who are you as an individual? It says, well, you're a male, 57, therefore you fit into the other 100,000 people who are men between 50 and 60 in this category. And you know, they don't know what you do behind your closed doors, and they don't know, what you were doing just after you've filled in the questionnaire. They don't know whether you filled the questionnaire inaccurately. There's so many unknowns from which they're producing a rule that we should all follow, that I just go, intuitively, I know that's flawed and isn't going to work. So I don't need to understand anything about medicine. I just go through the process of how it's happening. And then you look at who's actually driving the research and who's paying for it. And you go, well, that's a conflict of interest, huge conflict of interest. And of course, that's the sort of the bullshitometer I think you pick up when you're older. You probably found the same thing, where you don't know what the answer is and you don't know why they're wrong, but you know they're wrong. So that's encouraged me as well, because I'm like, look, at least if I'm going to be, get worse, I'll be in control of it myself. And if I'm actually feel like I'm getting better, but I'm actually making myself worse, maybe I'll look back and go, oh, that wasn't great, but I can't see how you can feel like this and be doing something that's gonna set you back worse than you were before. Otherwise you wouldn't feel like this. If my heart problems, I'd know.
Yeah. The thing is as well, like, there are things that make you feel good, like maybe having a cigarette or drinking alcohol or doing some kind of illicit drug or something, but there are immediate consequences to those things as well. Like, this is not one of those things, right? And it's basically, for most of us, it's the first time we've ever experienced this feeling in our lives outside of being a very young child.
Yeah.
Is that, it's like complete freedom to just move and think and be a normal human, right?
Yeah. And I hadn't realized, and I've, especially when you got all the trappings, it's like, yeah, things are great. And it's like, well, when you find out how you can feel, like, no, things weren't great. There were lots of band-aids stuck over things that you weren't addressing. And in my lifetime, the other thing that I always come back to, there's two things. Again, the bullshitometer of, we're living longer and medicine's saving our lives. Well, we're not living longer. You ask any insurance people and they'll tell you, actually, now life expectancy is decreasing. And the reason it's decreasing is because of chronic diseases. And the minute you do the research, you see the reason the chronic diseases are so rife and that we're getting them is because the number one biomarker is obesity. And I'm 57. When I was a kid, we used to get told, don't look at that person, and you'd be looking at them because they were fat. Because you're going, wow, they look like you'd look at a bodybuilder going, oh my God, I've never seen muscles like that. You go, oh my God, I've never seen fat like that before. Well, you wouldn't be told not to look at the fat person now.
You're scolding your kids, stop looking at that thin lady.
Well, this is it. This is it. It's like you go to the supermarket aisles, and I won't say which supermarkets, but Jesus, once you've taken the pill, it depresses the hell out of you. That you see, the family of three, and you go, okay, Dad, you're more overweight than I was, so you're at least 4 or 5 stone overweight. Mum, you're probably similar. And oh, what a surprise, little Jimmy, who's only 6 and is munching on a candy bar as they go by, is also grotesquely obese. And everything you've got in your trolley is only going to be adding to that. And it just breaks your heart. And it's all driven by unit economics. It's tragic.
Tragic is a good way of describing it. And yeah, I hope that things will turn around, but the way a lot of the diabetes associations and health authorities around the world treat things, it doesn't seem like it's going to turn around anytime soon.
No, I think if we rely on all the processes and governance and routes to market that have existed, then nothing will change at any sort of pace. But I think we have this is the positive power of social media. There's a community of carnivores. You'll know this. At the moment, it's very global, because that's the nature of it. But I was hearing the other day that now Carnivore has overtaken keto as Google search. So yeah, and keto is pretty mainstream. And I'm not standing here telling everyone about how I changed my life, but everyone who meets me, who knows me from old, that's the only question they've got on their lips. Because you look so different, and you feel so different, and then you start telling the story and they're like, this is bizarre, this is weird. But when you go, well, look, it's actually just no carbs. And if you do the investigation into carbs, it isn't going to take you a long time to find out that, the rumor about there being good and bad carbs was definitely true. But the rumor about the good carbs being good was false. Because actually, for some people, they can be tolerated and the vegetables are fine and the oxalates don't make a difference. But if you've got arthritis, if you've got something that's probably due to a build-up of crystals, then you probably need to understand about this and start doing your own science. And it sounds dangerous, but the human race we didn't have doctors. We knew what plants to eat and how to cook them. And our grandparents were fermenting stuff, and you shouldn't boil the hell out of vegetables. Well, it turns out you should for certain people. And finding out if you're that person, nobody's going to do that for you. You've got to do that for yourself until they start inventing or producing metabolic doctors. But my hope is the people that will end up paying for this are the insurance companies, because they're the only people who profit to or loss to the tune of billions, based on the fact that actually all of the pharmaceutical industry, or most of the pharmaceutical industry now, is based on will help you care for and manage your condition. What's the last thing an insurance company wants to hear? They want to hear, we're going to cure you. We're going to mean that you don't have to have the recurring revenue stream until you die that we as the insurance company are now lumbered with paying. So there is because it's all about economics, sadly, and there is a part of the market that needs those economics to change, and it's the food industry is obviously a hugely powerful lobby, pharmaceutical even more powerful. Well, insurance can fight them. So and also just the fact that when you start doing the digging, you find out that there's other people out there who are doing this, getting experience, and the more we promote that, and the more people like you are doing the fantastic work that you do, that's our hope. It sounds corny, but the power of social media is that it can impact, it can totally and utterly destroy the individual. I get that, but it can, if used right, massively empower the individual and give them a platform. And you look at the influencers who are driving very real sales of very real products all through social media, and I don't see why with poster boys like Dr. Chafee and people like that, who I think people will flock to just because how he looks and speaks. He's so sort of soporific, and he's not in a negative way, but he just lulls you into that wonderful world of carnivore. And it does correlate nicely with low carb, and keto's gained a lot of traction, and people are understanding that can have a real positive impact on life. So those are the things that I really, really, really pull hope from. And maybe if you'd asked me, 3/4 of a year ago, I'd say, we're all lost and doomed, because that would have been my mindset. But actually, the fact I'm talking to you, and the fact that I can name a dozen other people who have medical qualifications, who are talking all about these things and really pushing them hard, who knows where that'll be in 2 years' time. And when people like Joe Rogan start doing stuff, and Jordan Peterson, they've got so many followers, and they're so influential in how they get people to start thinking. I can only see it catching on, especially if you believe that you're a critical thinker rather than an ideologue. As in, if you believe you can challenge based on your understanding and your experience and continue learning, rather than, well, this is a mantra and we just need to keep repeating it, which is what we're a little bit stuck in many areas, then I think there is enormous hope and potential out there, because, you know, I can go to the butcher and start buying meat tomorrow. It's not like you have to do anything difficult. That's what I'm saying. You know, it's not like you have to weigh things out, or work out if you're going to eat this first, you got to eat that. You know, you literally just rock up and say, well, was it grass fed or corn fed? It was grass fed. Oh, that's why it's a bit more expensive. Then I'll have some of that.
Yeah. And that's kind of the good thing for people that are talking about this way of eating, you know, and trying to get the message out there, is that, you know, usually with things like this, people have always got their back up a little bit, thinking, hang on, you're trying to sell me something. And it's like, yeah, we're not selling you anything. Go and look after it yourself. I'm just telling you what to do. You know?
Yeah, it's like the fitness industry. You know, when I started getting a little bit, I was like, oh, I've got to do some fitness. Oh, I'll get myself a fitness coach. I'll get one of these programs. And you do a bit of digging, and you go, well, if you're walking 5,000 steps at the moment, try walking 10 every day. And then you start doing that, and you're like, well, you know, that was free advice. And you do it for a month, and you're like, oh, that's changed quite a bit. And it doesn't cost you anything. I mean, the weight vest cost me something to buy, but otherwise everything I've done is free, because you can, you know, do your own research on the internet. You know your symptoms better than anyone else. Maybe if you've not been to a doctor before, so don't know what's going on, you need to go down those routes, because that is useful, because you understand what you know, you might have something that you need to have medical intervention for. You know, I'm not saying all medicine is rubbish. A lot of it, you know, surgeons are awesome people who can save your lives. And you know, if you've got an extreme condition, it will help you elongate your life. But you know, if you want to cure yourself, then you've got to recognize that nobody's in that business other than actually potentially an insurance company, and they're not close enough to it yet to really make the difference.
So, Jerry, do you have any social media or website or anything if people want to reach out to you?
I mean, I don't know. You know, it's just been a personal journey for me. If anyone, I mean, I think you've got my email address, Dave. I'm happy for you to, if you do show this, put this on the notes or whatever. If anyone did want to reach out to me, I'm really happy on an individual basis. I do LinkedIn because that's professionally what I do, but I don't do Facebook, I don't do Instagram, I don't do TikTok or any of those things. The only thing I really look at, because it's long form and I can stop it and I can get into it and I can understand it and I can go and reference it other areas, is YouTube.
No worries. So that's that's great. I'll put your email in the show notes. And Jerry, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. Thank you so much.
Well, it's still ongoing, and please continue doing what you're doing, because the more we get stories from people who are turning their lives around and how they're doing it, you know, the more momentum things will build, and you know, the healthier people will be. And you know, my kids and the generation coming up, that's what I really want to get aware of this and healthy, and realizing that they have genuine agency in how they feel, rather than relying on a tablet, or rather relying on other people, whatever they're called, doctors, practitioners, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm a great believer that the individual is an awesome thing, and if we can empower them, then a lot of the issues that we have, we will overcome, and we can overcome.